What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with some more news. There's never a dull moment in the wild world of wrestling, and you can be sure Wrestlelamia only brings you the biggest stories in the industry. Join us now as Wrestlelamia looks at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including John Cena's generous donation to the Black Lives Matter movement, fans are growing sick of Charlotte Flair and she knows it, Vince McMahon is furious with Randy Orton and Tommaso Ciampa, Chris Jericho wants AEW to honor Owen Hart, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos. But now let's hit the intro because it's now time for the news. Now our first story looks at John Cena's generous donation to the Black Lives Matter movement. John Cena recently made a huge donation to the Black Lives Matter movement, with Wrestling King noting, shortly after K-pop band BTS and Big Hit Entertainment donated $1 million to BLM, the fans known as the BTS Army then matched the donation within 24 hours. Cena then matched that donation for a total of $3 million between Cena, BTS, and their fans. BTS fans actually raised over $1 million with 35,609 donors. What an incredible act on the part of John Cena. This man just recently donated over $40,000 to the Shad Gaspard Fund, and now he's made this huge donation as well. We've ragged on Cena before in the past, but this man proves time and time again he's one of the biggest and best role models in the entertainment industry. Amazing. Simply amazing. Next up, Jericho wants AEW to honor Owen Hart. Chris Jericho has strong ties with the Hart family, having idolized Owen and Bret Hart while he grew up. Recently, Le Champion spoke with Sportskeeda about what he'd like to see happen when it comes to honoring Owen Hart. I'd love to see Martha do something with AEW. I think the spirit of Owen Hart lives on in AEW for sure. I'm a huge disciple of him. I'm very much influenced by Owen Hart, so I think that whether it's New Japan or AEW, I think it's important for Owen to be remembered by his fans and by the people that he influenced, myself included. Do you think Martha Hart might agree to have Owen honored somewhere outside the WWE? How could they honor him? Maybe with a tournament in his name? Perhaps even starting a Hall of Fame, similarly to how Andre the Giant was the first and only inductee in the first WWE Hall of Fame. Next up, Vince McMahon is unhappy with both Tommaso Ciampa and Randy Orton. As noted in an earlier news video, Raw superstar Randy Orton and NXT superstar Tommaso Ciampa have been going at it on Twitter, and apparently Vince McMahon's none too pleased. Recently, Brian Alvarez discussed the situation on the Wrestling Observer Live, saying, "The impression that I was given is that Vince McMahon isn't very happy about this. For those of you who may not know, there are rules, and then there's Vince. Vince hates it when guys or women or whatever do something like teases a match and he's not gonna do. But if he starts booking something that doesn't pay off, it's totally fine. There is a different set of rules. Considering Randy Orton's past alleged activities when he doesn't like someone, perhaps social media is a much better outlet for the Viper than adding something special to someone's gym bag and other alleged activities we can't mention, as we risk getting demonetized." Next up, wrestling fans are sick of Charlotte Flair, and she knows it. Charlotte Flair has been getting lots of television time in the WWE, not only appearing on NXT as NXT World Champion, but making appearances on Raw and SmackDown to challenge the different brands' women's champions. Apparently the Queen may be wearing out her welcome with the fans, something even she seems to be aware of. However, Flair seems to feel that she's in a lose-lose situation, something she discussed during a recent talk with Sportskeeda. I don't know how that came about. Like we talked before, I really do think that my consistency is a detriment to people missing me. I feel like I'm doing some of my best work on my career right now, promo-wise and in-ring wise, but people see me all the time. I think they're used to it, and the expectation is so high, and it's so frustrating because it's like, well, am I not supposed to be hungry? Am I not supposed to always want to be on top? Am I not supposed to be fighting to get better? Flair commented that her oversaturation is something that she has no control over. I don't know, it's like catch-22. I think the biggest thing for me is, yeah, I'm on all three brands, but if you look at my storylines that I'm a part of someone else's storyline. It's not like anything is a Charlotte Flair push. Like, there's nothing like that. I'm just put there because I can basically do anything and everything they ask. Like, going to SmackDown was not for me. That's not a push. That is Charlotte Flair as a name and she's coming to SmackDown. So currently I'm just all over the place brand wise because I'm the hardest worker, and I will say that for the women. While there's no doubt that Charlotte is multi-talented and able to make any opponent look like $1 million, the WWE should have known better than to have her popping up on all 3 brands. As talented as she is, it's not as if she's the type of performer who brings in huge ratings wherever she goes. The WWE's decision to put the NXT Women's Championship on Flair was understandable since the goal was to boost NXT. However, the law of diminishing returns say that if she's available on all 3 brands, there's less incentive to tune into NXT. Whilst we're on the subject of Charlotte Flair, it seems that her next feud has been revealed. As Dave Meltzer mentioned on the recent Wrestling Observer Radio, I think it's pretty clear that Asuka and Charlotte now has 2 wins over Asuka, so I would think that this is building a feud between the 2 of them. Well, they've already had 2 matches on television, with Charlotte winning both of them, so what's next? Next up, Vince steps in. The WWE shows at the Performance Center are often taped, which means that matches can be stopped and restarted if something goes wrong. However, what happens when things just don't click during a match or segment? Things apparently got out of control enough that Mr. McMahon himself stepped in to produce that segment. According to Ringside News, a segment during Friday Night SmackDown this week took a long time to complete. Finally, Vince McMahon came out to help personally produce the segment. Our source in the company noted that this segment involved Jeff Hardy and Sheamus. There were no problems per se, but the process was taking a very long time. It got to the point where Vince came out to help produce it personally. Now, fans have heard that Vince McMahon has been in a foul mood recently, so imagine what happened if he had to personally get involved in a match. Next up, WWE and AEW bringing back the fans. With the pandemic apparently coming under control, how much longer before wrestling fans will be allowed back into arenas to watch wrestling? According to Brian Alvarez, it could still be some time before we see actual fans, as opposed to wrestlers, in the audience. It is possible because I've heard nothing from AEW about fans. The feeling is that it's way too early the last time I asked about a week ago. I haven't heard anything from WWE. It is possible that New Japan will shut down for 3 months while AEW and WWE ran in America, but New Japan may be the first promotion to return with fans. Given speculation, there could be a second wave of the pandemic, so AEW and WWE likely want to make sure they return to live crowds without having to pause again if things worsen. Booking a series of arenas only to have to cancel events would likely force both promotions to incur new costs. Next up, things improving for wrestlers serving as the audience at the Performance Center. We've heard that the wrestlers the WWE have brought into the Performance Center to serve as fans have worked long hours without any additional compensation, although sweetheart Nikki Cross reportedly brought pizza for the wrestlers on one occasion. However, Ringside News is reporting that things may be getting somewhat easier for the wrestlers forced to watch endless hours of wrestling. The WWE NXT superstars had to stand in place for hours during their last set of tapings. They weren't given chairs either. This time the company only made them stand in place when they were needed. The Performance Center crowd was kept out of the arena until they were needed. This time they weren't just standing around all day. Whether it's the WWE treating its wrestlers as independent contractors when they're employees, releasing a slew of talent during a pandemic, or having wrestlers serve as an audience with no extra compensation, the WWE continues to look like a terrible place to work. And finally, Triple H remembers having to cut off Ric Flair's Hall of Fame speech. Last but not least, let's look at the dilemma Triple H had to face back in 2008 at the WWE Hall of Fame ceremony when he inducted Ric Flair into the class. With a career as historic as that of the Nature Boy Ric Flair, it's difficult to summarize his many accomplishments in just a few paragraphs. Recently, Triple H spoke about the precarious situation he found himself in when Ric's speech went on too long. Now, Ric's doing his speech and at some point, I see somebody waving from the curtain like, wave me over. I stick my head into the gorilla position. Vince is like, how much longer has he got? He's talking about the 70s. He's not even in the 80s yet. Vince is like, well, we're gonna get dropped dead off television. You've gotta go out there and cut him off. You mean you want me to go on stage and tell Ric Flair to wrap up his induction speech? He's like, yeah, go right now. I'm like, for the love of God, right. I have to walk out there to the crowds booing, and I'm like, you gotta wrap it up. He's like, okay. He just keeps going. Triple H explained that he eventually was able to get Ric to end his speech, but he felt terrible about it, even though the Nature Boy seemed to take it all in his stride. But there you have it guys, the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.